It took me quite some time to finish this coding challenge, and I will try my best to explain how I got through with this one. And so, doing this coding challenge, I didn't do much research. The only resources and tools that I've used was the one mentioned on this description of the challenge. So there's two things that I've read up is this lexical analysis and this syntactic analysis, which honestly I didn't understand much of it. It's just that I've understood that there you could go through two stages or two processes just to do or finish the parser or a JSON parser in this case. And so yeah, you can read up this uh, Wikipedia entry here for both lexical and syntactic analysis. So they named it also as parsing. And so yeah, I don't know if I've actually applied this one because much of this stuff is a bit complicated for me. Sorry about that. And aside from that, I've also went and looked into this JSON.org document wherein you can see much of the different components of a JSON is. Includes a description of what are the types and the stuff that goes into a JSON file or a JSON object or an array or a component. And aside from that, the only other tool that I've used is this online JSON formatters. I've mostly used these two from TopTal and then this JSON formatter.org that I've used as I check through the different validations of the different uh, forms of JSON that I'm trying to parse. And so I use this as a checker or a cross reference so that I could actually validate and make sure that, yeah, what I've been doing is correct. Okay. And so, yeah, I think that's pretty much what I did or what I was going through this challenge. So I've also haven't looked into the existing implementations or code for this one, like the system.text.json that is built in from C Sharp itself and also the Newtonsoft libraries. So I have not looked into those existing libraries. So yeah, because yeah, that's part of the challenge without looking for any other references. But yeah, hopefully what I was doing here would hopefully be as close to those. But yeah, that I cannot really be sure of it. Okay. So the first four steps was somewhat easy initially, okay? But when I got to step 5, that's where things got a little bit complicated. So let's look at what I initially did. I will not explain all of things that I did here, but yeah, as you can see, this long line of commits is what I had to go through to finish this one. And so these were the first initial four steps, I think. Yeah, wherein I said, yeah, okay, that was easy. So how I set this up is I used unit testing or TDD or test driven development, wherein I had a X unit test. So these are the tests that I've used. So these were the initial tests for step 1 and then step 2 and step 3 up to step 4. Okay, so I just took this JSON here mentioned and then set it up as part of the test so I could quickly go through the each of the steps. All right, and so that was somehow all well and good at first until I came and reached step 5. So I tried step 5, which honestly is the most difficult part. Okay, so with step 5, I had to download this set of tests. So there are several files here inside this one that, let's let's see here. Let's keep anyway. So if you check this one, this is a zip file that contains multiple JSON files. They are like around 33 JSON files that would fail, and then 3 files that would pass. So what I did here was that instead of uh, reading through each of the file, what I did is just to create since we're using XUnit, we can specify a set set of JSON strings into this enumerable that you can use as a Fury or class data for your test. All right, so I have two of these. You have the pass and then the fail. Okay, so I just copied everything from all of those individual files so that, yeah, it's much easier to follow. Okay, so we have here this is the pass one, so all the possible valid JSON data, and then the fail ones, all possible failed JSON data. Okay, and so yep, we will not go through each of these tests, but I will show you uh, a very simplified flowchart that I've created that would describe how the parsing would uh, be processed. All right. Okay, so let's look at the flowchart that I've created, and so yeah, this is the best that I could think of that would be the simplest way of describing what the process of parsing the JSON would be that I've devised along the way. So we have to remember that for a JSON to be valid, it can only be either an object or an array. So an object would be when it's enclosed in that curly braces, open and closed curly braces, and then for array would be enclosed in brackets. Okay, now initially reading up on a JSON would need to determine if it is an object. Okay, if it is an object, which means most probably it should start with an open brace. If it is a yes, or it is, then we need to find a key, because for an object to be valid, it would need to have a key. So an object is a key value pair. Okay, so once you find a key, then you have to check if it's a valid key. So looking back at this reference on json.org, you can see that we have this uh, description of what is the key would be. So you have this surrounded by whatever is white space in between, and then you have the string. So a string, what is a string? This is the description of a string. So any valid character on the ASCII code list, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. Let me know your thoughts. And then, yeah, then along with the escape characters within it. All right. And so if it does have a valid key, then you continue parsing for the value. Okay. So if it doesn't have a valid key, then that would be the end of it, which would basically return a 1, since from this description, a valid would be here. Let's highlight this one. So the program should report to the standard output stream a suitable message with an exit with a code of 0 for valid and 1 for invalid. So in this case, that would return a 1 if it's invalid. Okay, and then next up would be uh, check for a value, a valid value. Okay, so if it does have a valid value, then we move on. But first, what are the valid values? So the valid values would be this. All right, So there is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. So we have the string first and then a number. Number could be anything. And also take note that one of the key things that had helped me in doing this challenge is this description here. All right. On the right side, you can notice that uh, it describes what a thing is, right? For in this case, a string. You look at this one and then you go to the string. A string would be the characters, and then what is a character? A character would be an empty one or a sequence of characters, and then what would those character be? So yeah, it describes exactly what needs to be parsed or validated. All right. So you have this escape key. This would be your clue. So everything that is on this stuff here, this is all your clue that you need to parse your JSON correctly. Okay, as well as for the number would be also this one, either an integer, a fraction, or an exponent. And then each of these components of the number is described down below also. All right, integer would be 0 to 9, which is a digit, and then multiple zeros to 9 digits. All right, and so on and so forth. And then what the tricky part also is that uh, a JSON must be only a object or an array as the root type, but these types can also be nested within values as also an either an object or an array. All right, and aside from that, you also have the Boolean ones, the true or false. So literally described here as a true and false, and then a null. All right, or equivalent to uh, empty stuff. Okay, and so once you have reached this one, if you can't find any valid value of those types, then it gets terminated, which would mean we would return one. Okay, now if moving forward through the uh, JSON, if you encounter a comma, you'll have to check if there is a comma. If there is, then that would indicate that there are more values ahead of it. Okay, then again, you go through and parse the next key. Since uh, if you're going through an object would need to have a key first and then a value next. All right, so the key value pairs are delimited or separated by a colon. Okay, I have not placed it here, but yeah, that's how it's being parsed, right? And then if there is no comma, which signifies that it's the end of your JSON, and then yeah, you just terminate it and return 0, which means that there's a valid key and object. I mean key and value, right? Now for the case of if it's not an object, then it is an array, which means that with an array, you only need to parse the value. All right. So if you can parse a valid value, any of those I've mentioned earlier, including either an object on or an array, then again you check moving forward, check ahead if there's a comma. Yes, if there is a comma, then you read again if there is another value. So this would be loops for this set. Okay, this set, and then yeah, same thing with the object. If there's a comma, you continue reading if you find another key value pair. Okay, so if there isn't a comma, which would mean that it's the end of your array, and then yeah, you just end and return 0. All right, and so yeah, if it isn't an array, then that would signify that it's an invalid or incorrect JSON. All right, so that's it. So I hope I've made this as simple as possible. Let me know if I've actually correctly created this flowchart, but I think I'll be adding this one on the repository, and including all of the code for this one is already on my Git repo, so you can check that one out. Okay, so let's go through the final code that I've uh, created, or the result of this exercise or challenge. And so let's make this bigger. So this is the final method that I've used. So it is valid is the name of it. Initially from my other when I was initially doing this one, I named it as parse, but yeah, along the way things got very complicated for me. I have so many stuff going on. Then finally I ended up with this is valid. If you also notice and observe that aside from this one, there are also other uh, helper methods that I've created or added as part of the parsing process. Okay, so you have, if you can notice, there is valid string key and then find escape character. I think some of this you don't actually need, especially this is escape character. I think there's no, I haven't okay, I still used it, but yeah, I guess I have used it. Okay, let's go back here. So what the method would do initially was to check uh, or to go through some prerequisites, okay, making sure that we could continue along the JSON string, okay. So of course we'll have to make sure that, yeah, we're not parsing an empty one, an empty JSON string, and then anything that is a single character or two characters would be invalid. We basically return one. And then this set of prerequisites also, we have to make sure that first it should start with either a open curly brace or an open bracket. And to make things, actually this line here I've already only added it recently when I was trying to prepare the video for this one, and so I ended up just, I think it would make sense so as to prevent any further going through the rest of the code below. So yeah, I don't know if there's any performance improvements with this one, but I tried running the tests here, but it seems to be, doesn't seem to make much any difference. But anyways, I just added it here to make it much clear that, yeah, a JSON would need to be an object or an array. Okay, so make sure that the first character of the JSON string would need to be an open. If it's an open curly brace, then it should end with a closing curly brace. Same stuff or thing with the array. All right, next we move on to the rest of the parsing code. So if it's white space would be anything that is slash return slash n, empty, just an empty blank line, space, yeah, then we don't need to parse that. All right, and so next would be, here would be the start of determining if it's an object or an array, since we need to know that uh, if it's an object, we are required to parse a key. So that's the stuff here. So here we have these things here that check if there's a valid value moving forward past this open bracket. Okay, and then same thing with the object. If we encountered a opening curly brace, then we need to check. So a common theme that have come up with this parsing stuff is that uh, you need to do forward scans. That's what the term that I have come up with. It's very common here. It's scattered throughout the code. We have this forward scans wherein once you encounter a key or a value, you need to scan ahead and check if there would be a valid next value, all right, or next key, or any next other key value pair. All right. And so, yeah, you have this forward scans here to check if it's a array type. Okay. One thing to note also that is I am storing the root types. Root types would be if there would be an object or an array, since JSON allows nesting of data of types. Okay. And so, yeah, that would come in handy later on when you are going to check for, especially with objects. Okay. And then part of it also is the limitations. So with this one, I think we are limited to like a depth of around 20 nested object. I don't know if it's strictly for object or arrays, but yeah, I've interpreted this one as anything above 20 would be too deep. Sorry about that. Okay. Then moving forward, after you've checked if there's a valid key, or if not, if there's any other values after it, then you need to check for the comma. So that is this part here. Check for a comma for an object or an array, or to check for another value. And then, yeah, you go through the same stuff, checking forward, doing forward scans along the way, just to check if there's any valid value. I feel like I keep repeating myself here. All right. And then check if the object is being closed, or it's the end of that object or array, then we need to remove that from our storage of root types. Okay. And then after that, if it's an object, we need to validate that the key string is valid. Like in this case, another forward scan for unescaped characters, or this part. And so I've devised a way to determine, you need to have the key start index, you need to find the key delimiter and index, and then you find the key and end index. That was kind of a tongue twister there, but yeah. So after you've checked or determined those like uh, ends or indices, then you do need to validate if it's actually a valid string. And then after that, you need to parse or validate, or to check for values. All right. So yeah, that's where the bulk of the uh, parsing is. Again, most of this stuff is you constantly do forward scans, especially with string values like here. So you determine if the value is starts with a double quote, then that would signify a string. Then you look for unescaped characters and return one, or an invalid if some, or if characters are unescaped. All right. And then from there on, uh, the string type is a bit of a special case, since this one I had to do it uh, at first as compared to other data types. All right. And then for the rest of the other types, like again, do the validation of the string, and then you validate if you find a number, you validate if you find a boolean, which would start with a T for true or F for false. Again, most of this stuff are forward scans, including the null. Okay. And then if you encounter another, this would be the wherein you have nested objects or array. Okay. And then at the end of it, you move on to the where you last correctly parsed a JSON string, and then you move through the rest of the remaining string. So this is a one big loop. Okay. So I guess that would be much of this code. Uh, could not explain in detail, but I hope that the flowchart that I've created uh, sums up all of this stuff. Okay. So this is definitely quite a challenge for me. uh, I'm not a expert coder, but yeah, I try to learn stuff every moment that I can. All right. And I'm looking forward to the next challenge again for this one, a different one. So yeah, I'll be putting up all the code in the repo for this one so that you can have a look at this one. And yeah, if you have some thoughts or things that you might want to share, things that maybe we could do to improve this one or improve the code, improve the flow chart, then please do tell me, and that would be very helpful for me and for everyone that yeah is trying to learn from this. Okay, so yeah, I think I'll see you again in our next episode. Thank you everyone, and have a great day and the rest of the day. Thank you.